In this problem, you're asked to write a function named reverse_name which takes two arguments. The first argument, source, is a string in the format first name last name, with a space separating the two parts. The second argument, destination, is an uninitialized character array whose size is the same as source. The function reverse_name needs to swap the contents of source so that it's in the format last name first name, and store the swapped value in destination. In the example given, source has a string John Smith assigned to it. Since it follows the format first name last name, John would be the first name and Smith would be the last name. After reverse name has executed, the order should be flipped and destination should have the value Smith John assigned to it. Notice how I divided the string and then placed each part into destination separately. In our solution, we will take a similar approach. First, we will copy the last name from source into destination. Then we'll add a space, and then copy the first name over. Since we have access to the functions in the string library, we won't have to write as many things from scratch. In order to copy the last name, we need to know where it begins. Since the first and last names are separated by a space, we know that the last name must begin at the index of the space, +1. One way of finding the index of the space will be by iterating over the characters in source until a white space character is found. However, the string library contains a function named strchar, which returns a pointer to the first occurrence of a given character in the string. So let's use that instead. First, let's declare a variable to store the return value of strchar. We'll name it spacePointer. If we look at the man page of strchar, it tells us that we need to pass in a string to search, as well as the character we're looking for. So we'll pass in source and the white space character. As a small aside, note the use of single quotes. They symbolize that we're passing in a single character, not a string. This may be useful to keep in mind when debugging programs. Now that we have a pointer to the space, we need to copy the characters following the space into destination. In the string library, there's another function we could use to achieve this, called strcopy. As you may have guessed from its name, strcopy simply copies the contents of one string into another. Recall that the end of a string is signified by a null terminator. Strcopy copies everything up to and including the null terminator. Since we want to copy everything in source that comes after the space, strcopy would be a fine choice. However, in cases where you only want to copy a specific number of bytes, or are not guaranteed to have a null terminating string, strncopy would be a better choice. At any rate, let's use strcopy now to copy everything after the space into destination. While this code segment looks like regular addition, it is important to note that spacePointer is a pointer and not an integer. By adding 1 to spacePointer, we're actually shifting the pointer over by 1 times the size of the type of whatever it points to. In this case, a character. So, the pointer has now been shifted by 1 character and points to the S instead of the space as a result of pointer arithmetic. At this point, destination only has the last name stored in it. We need to append a white space character, but in order to do so, we need an index in destination to store it in. Since destination currently holds the last name followed by a null terminator, we can just use strlen to get the index of where the space should go. We'll also store the value in a variable named index, just in case we need it again later. Now we can copy the first name into destination. As mentioned earlier, since we don't want to copy everything from the beginning of source to the null terminator, we'll use strncopy this time. Strncopy requires us to specify how many bytes to copy, so we'll need to determine the length of the first name. If we add 1 to the value of index, index will be the length of the string without the first name. We can then easily obtain the length of the first name by subtracting the new value of index from the length of source. We'll store this value in another variable and name it first name length. We can now call strncopy and pass in the required arguments. Be careful not to copy into just destination, since that would overwrite what we already have. Instead, we'll pass in destination plus index, so that strncopy will start copying into the index after the white space. Again, note the usage of pointer arithmetic here. When adding an integer n to a pointer, we're really shifting the pointer over by n times the size of the pointer's base type. In this case, we're shifting it over by exactly index bytes, since the size of a char is 1 byte. If we were to assign destination plus index to another char pointer, the char pointer would point to the location of the j in destination. Finally, we need to null terminate destination. To find out where the null terminator should go, we can simply add the length of the first name to index. And we're done.